Hey everybody, welcome back to the bench. I've been searching through, I just finished painting the Lola GT. So if you haven't seen that video, go back and take a look at that. And while she's drying, I figured I'd get started on another revival. Just wanted to do something a little different, you know? It's doing red lines all the time. Is kind of, it's cool, and I got plenty of them to do. I just wanted to do something different. The red lines, we all know what they are. We know what kind of the animals that they are. Just wanted to do something that was off the cuff. So I went through my little graveyard of stuff and came up with this little fella right here. This is a Porsche 911 Turbo. Let's see if we can get even closer on that. So there you go. This is an old blackwall. Let's see what that says. 1974, Hong Kong. Nothing fancy. I'm not sure if these decals are available. And I'll worry about that when I get there. If I'm going to put decals on it or not, or just give it a solid color. So let's get started getting this disassembled. And see if we can have a good time with this little 1974. So that's 74. That's yeah, it's old. I'm not doing the math. If you guys want to do the math, you guys can do the math. So get our drill set up here. Hopefully this will be able to get in there. It looks like it wants to. That's too big. We're gonna have to do this with a drill bit all the way, and that could be a problem because this rivet is domed. This rivet is not inset. It's got a little dome on it. We might have to get a little medieval on this. Let's see if I can even get in there with the punch. If I can, then that's good news. Oh, that wasn't too bad. And that already got started. All right, so let's go the old normal way, shall we? I don't know what they made these out of, but that was pretty rough. So here's a base. This is the P-911. Inside looks pretty good. Posts, again, these are skinny posts too. But we're going to do our usual glue job on those. Window looks really bad. This is one piece, so this is one little clamshell of the interior. It's like that clear smoke. So we're going to have to be a little careful with this. Looks like there's some schmutz right in there. So we'll put those pieces in there, clean up our mess, and send Junior for a little dip in the paint juice. Might have to put a little bit more in here. Looks like we're getting a little low, so why don't we do that while we're at it. That's all. We don't even have to top it off. I just want to get a little bit in there. So that'll be good to go. And I just give her a little shake, make sure I get it spun around, and then I leave it sideways so I don't have to have a jar full of paint remover. I can have it half full and have the car submerged half on its side. And then we let it sit overnight. And I put it in that little container so just in case it does leak. And then we clean off the Z-bench. And we move on to what's next. I don't know. But I think this might be time to use some axle tubes and see if I can do some cool wheels with this. So I'm going to get my grinder out and I'm going to start looking at grinding that pinch weld or that pinch block. I don't know. Maybe I can use something with some music wire and get a new set of wheels in there. I don't know. What do you guys think? Well, you're going to find out. But right now I'm going to go search for some wheels, get a couple ideas. So here's our body. One of the things that I've done over a few years of doing this now is some folks might think this piece, this emery board, is wasted. And it's pretty used and abused. The upside to holding on to something like this, or even, you know, this is some used paper. This is like a 150 grit sandpaper, a little balled up piece. I mean, these can last forever depending on what you're using them for as far as steel goes. And this piece is not really super used, but there might have been a couple of, you know, applications I used it on. So I save these scraps, and the reason I do it, A, for the cost effectiveness of it, to really stretch it. And B, something like this 150 sandpaper, it's already been used, so it's really not cutting any longer at 150. So if I need something, I don't want to be too overly aggressive with this. And if I can use something that I've already used and just now saved, you know, getting multiple uses out of this little sliver of paper to try and help me get this bad looking spot into a better condition, then it's worth it. I keep this little, you know, it's a little scrap container that I keep in my box. Same with these. You can see this piece has been used. It's creased. This is actually probably a better option because this is still quite gritty. You can hear that. And this is a little smoother. So I'm going to use this to get started on this roof line and take down some of those spots. And you can see it is abrasive and aggressive, but not quite as aggressive as that 150 would be. And the object of what I'm doing here is just to get this, you know, in a little better shape before I apply primer and paint. We don't want to have any pitting. I can already feel that's much smoother than what it was. So it's going to continue to get better. And I didn't create any deep scratches or anything with the 150 grit paper. So using older papers and emery cloths and whatever you've got, stuff that's already been used, you might think it's trash. It doesn't hurt to keep a little container. And when I say a little container, this is what I mean. Just a little box, 6 or 8 inches long. It's got nothing but scraps in it, things that have already been used. There's some sanding sticks. I very rarely use those. They're just too small. Here's a couple of new emery boards. But all these little papers that you would toss, you can get 5 or 6 or 10, however many uses you can get out of it. The cost savings is great. And it also helps you make better decisions because you may only have 150 grit sandpaper that's all new. And if I would have taken a brand new piece of 150 to this, I would have really made some aggressive scratches and things. So I'm just going to use that to smooth that little roof line out a little bit, make it much better so paint doesn't sit in there. There's no craters or anything. And the same thing with files. You know, if you got a file that's kind of used and abused, these aren't. But if you did, you could save and hold on to those as well. So you're less aggressive. You're actually doing yourself, sometimes you might be creating yourself more work if you use something aggressive. It's easier to, like the old measure twice, cut once. Well, use something that's less aggressive and maybe spend 5 more minutes on it to get it correct, or the way you're satisfied with it, rather than make a bigger mess and then have to go back and repair something that you did because you just didn't take your time. That's nice. This little flash line, you can see how this rear window, it's a little crooked, how it's got this little like whoop-de-doo in here. So there's flashing in there that needs to be knocked down a little bit. So yeah, save things if you can. Make your life a little bit easier. Keep your project, from going south on you and making, maybe sometimes it could be a non-recoverable error. And just, you know the drill. You've been watching these videos long enough from the entire community of folks that do this, and we've all got our own little peccadillos and things that we, our own ways of doing things. So each of us, brings something different to the patterns and processes that we use, and we all steal from each other too, which is totally okay. And I don't think it's stealing. We offer this stuff freely. Kind of like me with gauzy. Still yet to use it. I see everybody using it. I'm totally happy with the Pledge Revive It, or Future Shine as it used to be called. There's a little dinger on that rear fender right here on the fender well. Not a ding, it's kind of some flashing. We'll take care of that too. It's nice when you can go through one of these little revivals and everything on these castings is like super 100%. But even on some of these, non-red line, the red lines seem to be the ones that have a lot of it because of the age. But this is quite old too. 74, I guess, was the release year. It's a survivor by no stretch of the imagination. But sometimes you have to get in there and clean these things up. And I think it makes for a better finished product. Not that mine are... that many of mine have been like these pristine restore jobs or custom jobs. But when you do take the extra time, and me, it's just a matter of, I know it's going to irritate me if I get to the end and if I see something that I didn't catch, or because I rushed it, or again, really, sometimes just didn't see it. And sometimes you don't see things because you're rushing. At least that's my case. I don't know about anybody else. So all of that looks pretty good. This one could use a couple more runs over with the file. This file is pretty aggressive. I'm going to have to sand that too. That wheel just looks crooked. It just doesn't look like a smooth oval. Let me get down here and do a little. There you go. A little more pressure. That looks better. So here is our base, all polished up. Here is our body ready for primer and paint. And I'm going to work on this windshield. I'm just going to wet sand this, just like some of the previous videos. We're going to take it easy. We're not going to try and grind. This is 800 grit sandpaper I'm holding. And I'm going to try and get this to a smooth, cloudy appearance. The upside to working with this one is that it's that smoke, that transparent smoke plastic. So I'm happy about that, because sometimes the clear pieces, or the clearer pieces, excuse me, tend to show more of the scratches and cracks, things like that. So my goal is just to get this as uniform as possible as far as the cloudiness. You can see if there were any low spots in here, it would show up as a glossy spot. So that's pretty much taken care of on the rear. The rear wasn't so bad. It's the front that has some of those low spots. You can see those little glossy spots. Those are low spots. I don't have to be, I would love to be able to get a 100,000% accurate, but depends on what kind of condition these are in. So we're just going to keep sanding away. Not too aggressive. And I just want to make this the appearance of this one solid. You can see there's still a couple little spots in there, but I don't think that's going to be terrible. And this little rear spoiler piece that comes through in the back doesn't look too bad. I don't think I'm going to touch that at all. So the rear windshield, or the rear window, and the front windshield now look pretty uniform. Let me give that just an extra little bit on that side. So I'll get this uniform. I will take it over to my denim wheel on my drill press. You've seen me do that process before to bring some of the sheen back. And then we'll dunk the whole thing into some Revive It, Pledge Revive It. And we'll go from there. Should be should work out pretty well. So after some wet sanding and a shot on the old buffer wheel, I noticed the side windows were the side glass was a little scratched up too, so I came back and wet sanded that. And a little bit of polish on the old denim buffing wheel. We've got a nice smooth window, all the windows, nice and smooth. Just got to get some of that polish that got stuck up in there. Got to clean that out. Other than that, it's looking good and ready to go. We're going to do the old Future Shine, the Revive It. I still refer to it as a Future Shine because that's what it was called back in the day. And let's get some of this polish off of here. Make sure none of that residue remains. It's just really weird how that happens because it kind of bakes itself into the plastic a little bit. But we're going to do the old Revive It trick in a second, and I'll show you that process in a minute. So here is our little jar of Pledge Revive It. This is what this bottle looked like when I bought it, ooh, gosh, 6 years ago. You can see how much is left. It's probably clouding up. I don't know how little, like, fruit flies got in there. It's beyond me. But this is what it looked like. I don't even know if it's still available. It may be. So I just take it out of my original container, little jar, and some tweezers, and take your piece, give it a swish, and then wick off the excess so it doesn't make clumpies. You don't want it to clump up in here. Oh no. Oh no, no, no. Right, we're going to have to do that again. So we'll give it a double dip. I'm trying to find a spot where I can grab that where it's not on the actual pieces that are going to show. So we gave it another dip. Wick it off on a paper towel. You've probably seen this process a million times too. Just wick it off, and then just put a little plastic cover over it so no dust or dirt gets on it, and then slide it off let it dry, and that's really about it. So if you're interested in trying to find that, that's what it looks like. This is a 27-ounce bottle. I don't remember again how long. It's got to be. It's quite a while ago that I bought it. Also remember, clean off your plier or your tweezers or whatever you're using, because that stuff will tack up. It gets sticky, and it's not pleasant to get off after it's dry, especially on things like this. Okay, so we'll let that dry. We're going to go over to primer and paint for the body, and then you'll be back to see the final assembly. So my choices: Rattle Can Automotive Primer by Rust-Oleum, and my favorite white, the Rust-Oleum Appliance Epoxy. So I've already got the primer down. I'm letting it dry. And here's what we got so far. I actually have an infrared patio heater down here now in the basement to keep me a little warm as the winter is upon us. So it actually doubled as a nice bake center to get this piece not only warm before I primed it, but then to get the primer to settle. And pretty happy with that. So we're going to go into paint now, and I'll give you a shot of that when that's all done. So here is our body in our epoxy white. It's really about 3 coats. You can see how nice that sits up, especially now with that little heat lamp I got going on here to keep me warm. So it looks pretty good. We're going to let this dry really well. We'll do I'll show you the application of the decals, final assembly, all that good stuff. Looks good. Really dig it. So I couldn't help myself. I had to do a little custom on this. I found a set of real riders that looked real nice. I thought would update the look of the vehicle a little bit. So I had to do the pinch weld thing because I didn't want to cut the axles apart. I didn't want to cut the wheels off the axle. So I opened up the pinch weld, a little crazy glue, and we've got a roller that I think is going to look really super when it's done. So we'll be back. So I'm going to apologize in advance. I wasn't having any success with any of the wireless mic systems that I was buying. They just sounded like dirt. I brought my Rode Video Mic Go 2 down here in the basement. It is omnidirectional. It picks up pretty much it could pick up a mouse fart, for lack of a better terminology. But I've got the football game on. I'm watching Dallas and Detroit right now, on in the background, so you may hear some of that bleeding in. If my furnace kicks on, you might hear a little bit of background noise. I did put a baffle around the mic, so it kind of just focuses on one direction, only my voice. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. So I spared you the details of the actual reassembly of this car and my steel stick rivet trick that I do. But it is back together. The glass looks ridiculously good, better than I expected it would come out, seeing how it was originally. So the windshield and the rear window look great. I did put some real riders on, and they look ridiculously good too. So I couldn't resist. I felt the car needed a little update, 1974 P-11 with the original wheels, the black walls. It's still a black wall, but I got a full roller with some real riders on it, and it looks awesome. And we're going to dive into putting some decals on. I have my wet paper towel just to get the water soaked through the backing, rather than submerge them. Sometimes you submerge them too long. Sometimes you could lose color. It could bleed off. Even though these are super decals from Second Chance Redline. The only thing I did notice is on one of the side decals, you see 2 shell like shell logos, and on the other side, there is only 1. I don't know if that's by design or it was a mishap in their creation, but it is what it is. if it's a defect in there, maybe they forgot to remove one, maybe I'll let them know. So I've got all the essentials. I've got a small brush for my Microsol, some Q-tips, tweezers, and I feel like I'm gonna have a good time with these. So what I'm gonna do is just put a little bit of water on the car, and then this is my tweezer. Ooh, my tweezer. I'm just going to hold down the decal and pull the backing out from underneath. And I'm actually pretty satisfied with that position. Maybe just a little tilt this way. If I could move it a little. Oop, a little too much. It's one of the reasons why you put some water down, so you can still get a little time to reposition. Move it down a little bit more. Then I do the old two Q-tip trick. I hold the piece down and then just lightly squeegee the water out from the backing. Also saved you the the very tedious process of cutting these decals out, because they really have a little thin line here going over the fenders. So I saved you and spared you that. And I'm going to spare you probably putting on the side decals too. But I just wanted to show you at least a little bit of the process. So hopefully you don't hear Joe Buck and Troy Aikman speaking or hear any loud bleed through from watching the game, or at least listening to it in the background. So squeegee that water out. Make sure your decal is laying the way you want it to lay. This requires a very light touch. You don't have to get too crazy. You don't want to rub too hard, because you could rub color off. And if you want to check that, just check your tips to see if there's any color bleeding through on the end of your tips or coming off on the end of your tips. And let's say this one is good. And then we take a little, I get the brush a little damp. Make sure there's a decent amount of Microsol. I wick some of it off. You don't have to put too much on there. And this will help this decal stay in place and shrink a little bit. And there you have it. So turbo number 6 has its first decal applied. With Microsol, you don't need a lot. A little dab will do you. So I usually start with a little bit of a lighter coat, and then add a little bit more. And I continue to brush it, and then I will get the brush dry when I'm really done, to help wick off any excess that's laying on the top. Sometimes if you let too much of it lay on the top, it will wrinkle. And I guess that depends on the decal paper too, so, and who's produced the decal. But for all intents, this one to me is set. There we go. And we're looking pretty darn good, I think. So let's move on. I'm going to do the roof decal next. And same process, just dunk, or not dunk, just place your piece with the paper backing down against the wet towel. Let it sit for a little bit. The one I'm not looking forward to do is this one right here, this little one. That goes in between the spoiler and the window. That might be a little bit of a tension convention for me. And I think there's one that goes across the bottom here. That one might be a little difficult too, but we'll see. Shouldn't be too bad. You will need to trim these. They are a little bit longer or wider than the pieces or the placement where they actually go. So you may need to do a little trimming. So now this has a little bit of a dimple or a raised piece. There's on the back window, you can see a little bit of a little whoop-de-doo in there. That's by design, I believe, because it's very even. It looks like it's just cast that way. So I'm gonna get a little water on my finger, and then same thing. We're gonna get some pressure on the decal. A little pressure. It's hard to do now that I put the wheels on already. I should have just left them off. And now just place it, pull, and check the alignment a little bit, side to side, to match the front, and make sure it kind of lines up with that little whoop-de-doo there in the window. I'd say that looks pretty good. And same process, hold the decal, squeegee, squeegee. And it's pretty much soak. Ooh, you got a little movement there, we didn't want that. It's pretty much soak, apply, squeegee, repeat. So that's these two. Make sure it's kind of wicked off there. I did have a little bit of a, looks like a little mix up there with the cut. Cuts a touch off. I'm not going to try and force it back, but that's all right. Let me take some more Microsol, lick some of it off. Just a little light brushing. And then you can use the water too to clear some Microsol off, dry the brush, and then wick off the rest of the Microsol. Because again, sometimes too much will make these curl up. They do weird things depending on the actual make and manufacturer. And there's our hood, or our roof decal. I'm fighting with myself. I think I should have, probably should have left it apart. Put the decals on and then clear coated it. But the original one, the decals weren't clear coated over, so we'll just leave this as it is. So I'm going to go apply the rest, and when I come back, you're going to see the final reveal. And my furnace just kicked on, so I don't know if you heard that. So it's probably a good time to shut the camera and move on to the next spot. So here's our final reveal. The 1974 Porsche P-911 Turbo 6 shell car. This car was modeled from the Martini Rossi Racing team back in the day. Just one of many different types of versions that were out there of this car. There was a yellow with some funky stripes. There was like a chrome version with some funky stripes. There was also another white car with red and blue striping on it. But this one was the only one I think that had some sort of branding as the Martini and Rossi racing team. Was pretty popular. I think probably back in the 70s mostly, maybe even into the 80s. They're probably still around today. But I was glad to find this car in a box of junkyard stuff that I had picked up on eBay a few years ago. And when I saw it, I was like, you know what, this one needs an overhaul. And here it is. And as luck would have it, Second Chance Redlines did have a set of decals for it. I did not use the original black walls or the reproduction black walls. I just thought, you know, I couldn't help myself. It needed an updated vision with some nicer looking wheels. And I kind of dig the way it is now. So again, the windows came out better than I expected. I think the wheels just make it pop off a little better, a little update to a classic automobile. So hope you enjoyed the restoration. Thank you all for sticking around and viewing things on this channel. I guess I started in 2019. I'm going to be heading into year number 5 in 2024. Really only about 48 hours from now. So thanks for sticking around and liking, sharing, subscribing, leaving comments, especially those in the diecast community. I've taken a little bit of time off there in between, probably about 18 months, 20 months over the course of these going into year number 5. So those of you that stuck around and those of you that just joined and are subscribers, I really appreciate it. So I hope you all have a very healthy and prosperous new year in 2024. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave me a comment, and I will see you in the next video.